woman raised a hammer and smashed it viciously into the corner of her own eye. She deliberately cut her hair short, carefully packed her long hair into a bag, then took out hair dye and changed the color of both her hair and her eyebrows. Then, suppressing her nausea, she disguised herself to look like a long-time smoker. She also thoroughly cleaned the bathroom, using disinfectant to cover up her own scent. And the reason she did all this was shockingly to frame her own husband. Amy fell in love with Nick at first sight, completely captivated by his wit and humor. But after marriage, the man revealed his true nature. He spent all day obsessed with video games, and when it came to money, he was extremely reckless. In order to awaken her husband's sense of responsibility, Amy suggested having a child, but the man hurried out the door, impatiently tossing her aside with a look of annoyance. The woman was utterly disappointed in him, and from then on launched a frenzied revenge. Taking advantage of her husband being out drinking, Amy drew nearly 2 pounds of her own blood and splashed some of it onto the cabinet. She then poured the remaining blood onto the floor, spread it evenly with both hands, and dragged out 2 smeared handprints. Next, she took toilet paper and wiped every trace of blood from the floor. She smeared blood all over the hammer and hid the blood-stained hammer inside the fireplace. While her husband was enjoying himself at a bar, he suddenly received a phone call from a neighbor. Learning that his wife had vanished without a trace, the confused man rushed back home. Seeing the shattered coffee table, Nick instantly sensed that something was wrong, but before he could think further, urgent police sirens sounded outside. The police searched every room and quickly discovered bloodstains on the cabinet. Given the signs of a struggle, they collected Nick's saliva and fingerprints. According to Nick, he had met Amy 5 years earlier. Not only was Amy young and beautiful, she was also a highly intelligent psychologist PhD, while he, as a screenwriter, was fairly well known in the industry. After marriage, Amy quit her job and became a full-time housewife. Her daily routine was simple, and logically, she shouldn't have made any enemies. To preserve the crime scene, the police sealed off their house, and with no other option, Nick temporarily stayed at his sister's place. That night, when the police returned to Nick's home to continue their investigation, they were suddenly stopped by a pregnant woman. She claimed to be Amy's close friend and said she was deeply worried about her disappearance. The detective was momentarily surprised, not expecting Amy to have such a close friend, and dismissed her with the excuse of being too busy. After ordering her team to finish checking the files, the detective discovered that all the household assets were registered under Amy's name, which meant Nick was very likely suspected of killing his wife for money. Sure enough, as soon as he entered the bedroom, he found clues deliberately left behind by Amy.
Well, we have our first clue.
As the prime suspect, Nick was once again summoned to the police station. But when he saw the envelope his wife had left, he remained unusually calm, saying it was simply one of their usual games. Whenever an important holiday arrived, Amy would leave clues, and he would follow them in a scavenger hunt to uncover surprises, strengthening their relationship. Following the letter's instructions, Nick brought the detective to his office, and sure enough, they easily found the second clue on the desk. But just as he was reasoning out the answer, the detective discovered a pair of lace panties. She mocked Nick's promiscuity while placing the underwear into an evidence bag. The second clue pointed to a brown cottage, but Nick helplessly shrugged, saying he didn't know where it was. Yet that night, he secretly slipped into an old house and easily found the third clue on the table in the middle. Before he could read the letter, the detective quietly followed him inside. He quickly hid the envelope behind his back, claiming he was just checking on his father's house. The detective suspected this was the brown cottage, but the blue walls instantly dispelled her doubts. What the police didn't know was that Nick's father's name was Brown, which literally meant brown in English. Nick opened the third clue and found the words punishment, wood, and candy. He racked his brain for a long time but still couldn't understand their connection. In his eyes, it was still just a couple's game. Early the next morning, Amy's parents arrived and held a press conference to search for their daughter. Facing the reporters, Nick briefly explained the situation, but when photographers took pictures, he inexplicably smiled, an extremely inappropriate reaction that instantly made him a media target. After the press conference, Nick immediately looked relieved. He warmly greeted everyone, seemingly indifferent to his wife's disappearance, and this reaction only deepened people's suspicion of him. When the detective mentioned Amy's close friend, Nick claimed he knew nothing about her and didn't remember such a person at all. At the public vigil, Nick remained calm, delivering a few irrelevant formal remarks. The neighbors couldn't stand it anymore and began accusing Nick, and amid the outcry, a woman suddenly stood up.
What did you do to your pregnant wife?
Let's
You tell
find...
him that, Nick. You tell him Amy was 6 weeks pregnant.
The scene erupted, instantly intensifying the verbal attacks. Nick was momentarily stunned and only managed to escape into the car under police protection. The detective chased after him and asked whether he knew about his wife's pregnancy, but he insisted the woman was crazy and said he didn't know her. The detective then threw down a stack of photos, all showing Amy and that woman together, their intimate relationship unmistakable. Without waiting for his explanation, she stomped inside the restaurant, and the photos on the wall immediately fell off. It was clear someone had hurriedly placed them there, leading police to suspect a struggle had occurred and that Nick later cleaned up the scene. Nick tried to argue, but the police presented the luminol test results. Nick instantly panicked and hurriedly claimed he had no motive to kill, but the detective confidently produced his recent credit card statements, filled with expensive luxury purchases far beyond his means. The most damning evidence was Amy's massive life insurance policy, with Nick as the sole beneficiary, and the coverage had recently been increased. Only then did Nick recall that Amy had tricked him into signing the policy while he was distracted. Before he could explain, the detective received another call from the hospital.
She was pregnant.
To clear his name, Nick produced the third clue, and after thinking all night, he finally remembered the candy-filled wooden shed. When he pushed open the shed's small door, he froze in shock. All the luxury goods listed on the credit card statements were hidden inside. If the police found them, Nick would never clear his name. He hurriedly called his sister to witness everything, and only then did they realize that Amy had planned everything long in advance. To frame Nick, Amy had executed an extremely meticulous scheme. She deliberately befriended the pregnant neighbor, pretending to be inseparable, and lied about suffering domestic abuse to easily gain the woman's sympathy. She invited her over as a guest, but sabotaged the toilet in advance. After the woman used it, Amy collected her urine, ensuring the pregnancy test would come back positive. She maxed out Nick's credit cards, buying toys favored by shut-ins, then tricked him into signing a massive insurance policy while he was distracted watching a game. Feeling that wasn't enough, Amy forged 2 full years of diary entries, filled with domestic abuse and despair. She stuffed the diary into the fireplace and burned it just enough to make it look destroyed while still readable. After leaving sufficient evidence, Amy bought an unregistered car, completely changed her appearance, and rented a place in a remote town. Claiming she had suffered domestic abuse, she easily gained her new neighbor's sympathy, and the two got along well. But Amy never expected she had run into ruthless people this time. While playing ball with her new neighbor, her thick bundle of cash fell out. She hurried to hide it, but the woman had already noticed. Early the next morning, the woman returned with a thug and broke into her room. Seeing her newly dyed hair and fresh bruises, they instantly understood what she was hiding. Knowing she would never dare call the police, they mercilessly robbed Amy of all her cash.
Holy shit.
With no other options left, Amy called her ex-boyfriend. Seeing she was still alive shocked him, but her lies continued. She desperately begged him not to report her, and the man, who wanted exactly that, quickly took her back to his villa. The villa had full surveillance coverage, enough to guarantee Amy's safety. Located in a remote lakeside area, it was completely undisturbed, allowing Amy to live comfortably without worry. But her ex-boyfriend's obsessive need for control soon suffocated her once again. Amy followed every piece of news about her husband, hoping the case would take a turn. With a complete chain of evidence, Nick was almost declared the killer, and he knew only finding Amy could clear his name. So he voluntarily appeared on a TV show and delivered a heartfelt public confession. Seeing his genuine emotions, Amy felt as if she had rediscovered the secret to keeping love alive, her eyes lighting up as her determination to return home grew stronger. To escape her ex-boyfriend's control, Amy studied the villa's surveillance system and spent days planning the most reasonable explanation for her disappearance. She put on the dress her ex had prepared and began pretending to submit to him. While he was going out, she suddenly lunged forward and bit his lip, then messed up his clothes and hair, deliberately exposing him to the cameras. After confirming he had left, Amy's performance officially began. She soaked the hem of her dress in red wine, then rushed under the cameras, desperately staging the illusion of sexual assault. She bound her wrists with rope, faking long-term restraint, then injured herself with a wine bottle, pretending to have been abused. When her ex-boyfriend rushed back, she eagerly invited him into bed. The man didn't think twice, but at that moment, Amy reached under the pillow, pulled out a dagger, and instantly slit his throat. Breaking free, Amy drove her ex-boyfriend's car home, covered in blood, causing an immediate media sensation. Nick had no idea what had happened, but Amy walked straight up and embraced him, performing a loving reunion before the cameras. Facing police questioning, Amy claimed she had been kidnapped and tortured by her ex-boyfriend for over a month. She said she pretended to submit just to find a chance to kill him and return to her husband. The staged surveillance footage was enough to prove she was telling the truth. The couple returned home in glory, becoming the media's model-loving couple. Amy was even portrayed as a brave young woman who fought back against evil. But Nick knew everything Amy said was false. Unable to endure the constant fear, he finally decided to expose everything to the media. However, as long as we're tied together, Amy remained completely calm. They profited from the publicity, and even Nick's sister's bar expanded into a chain. To completely silence Nick, Amy even gave him a special gift. When Nick learned that Amy was pregnant, he angrily pinned her against the wall, yet even for the child's sake, he could no longer expose her secrets. So Nick had no choice but to compromise, cooperating with Amy in interviews as she completely controlled him, a satisfied smile appearing on her face. Nick stroked her hair, unable to know what sinister plans were brewing inside her mind. Though they appeared to be a loving couple, their private world was filled with conspiracy and helplessness. Marriage is a magnificent robe, but upon closer inspection, it is already crawling with lice.